वैसा ज्यादा मजा अब दिखा आखिरी वाले का टाइप और टाइप दूसरा फोटो चेक कीजिए हेलो
Recording in progress.
हेलो हेलो आप रहा मैं बोल रहा हूँ हाँ
भाई मृत्युंजय
Good morning, everyone.
किलो 5 नंबर
भाई जैसे नाम बोले तो याद कर ले नाम बहुत खराब होता है उसका नाम पहले ले लेना Cameraman, please. Audio check कराएं.
हेलो हेलो 5 नंबर. हाँ हाँ.
Okay, I think we're ready to roll. So, good morning and good afternoon to those people who are joining us from Australia. A very warm welcome to the AIBX 2021 Business Leaders Forum, Partnering for Prosperity. It's actually fantastic to be able to host this event live from New Delhi, and it's also good to have so many business people joining us online. I'm Catherine Gallagher. I'm the head of Austrade for South Asia, and it's my pleasure to be the MC for today's event. To start proceedings, I'd really like to acknowledge the traditional custodians across the different lands we are all joining from today. I pay my respects to elders, past and present, and extend my respect to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues and participants. We are joined today by many friends and champions of the Australia-India relationship. None more so than the Australian High Commissioner to India, the Honourable Barry O'Farrell. Barry is a passionate advocate of the Australia-India bilateral relationship, so we're very pleased to have him. And good morning, High Commissioner. Today's event is part of the AIBX 2021 Business Mission, Austrade's first hybrid business mission, and it's been a huge success so far. It's included 20 individual events across 5 sectors involving 150 Australian and 300 Indian companies, all delivered on a virtual conference platform over 2 intense days. I'd like to thank all our business participants and the many speakers for making the hybrid mission such a huge success. I'd also like to acknowledge today's event partners, the Confederation of Indian Industry, better known as CII, and the Economic Times. And we're very honoured to be joined in person here today in Delhi by Australia's Trade Minister, the Honourable Dan Tehan. Minister Tehan is our guest of honour and will to deliver today's keynote address. We'll also hear from Ambassador Wadhwa, author of the Australian Economic Strategy, who is representing CII, and then we'll be joined by an esteemed panel of business leaders from both Australia and India, to be moderated by Ruchi Bhatia from the Economic Times. So, to get started, I'd now like to invite Ambassador Wadhwa to the stage to give the opening remarks.
Mr. Dan Tehan MP, Minister of Trade, Tourism and Investment of Australia, business leaders from India and Australia, ladies and gentlemen, as a comprehensive and strategic Quad partner, Australia's importance for India has risen very rapidly, both geographically as well as economically. Today, India and Australia have similarity of views on multilateral institutions, the rule of law, and a free and open Indo-Pacific. An India Economic Strategy Report to 2035, which was launched by Australia in November 2018, is now being updated, and a reciprocal Australia Economic Strategy Report, which I was assigned to produce with KPMG and CII teams, was released in November 2020 by Minister of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Piyush Goyal. So this report has advocated that Australia is an ideal strategic partner for India in its journey to achieve a transformative and inclusive economic growth, and has identified 20 specific areas for investments and for trade. Post-COVID, India has carried out important reforms and is open to investment and collaboration in areas which will interest Australia. Those include mining, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, information technology, infrastructure, defense, space, tourism, agriculture, food processing, and grain storage technologies, as well as dairy modernization. All these, Minister, you would agree, are of great interest to Australian companies. We've had the production-linked incentive scheme, which has identified a number of sectors for manufacturing incentives in India. There's been a medium-term national monetization plan pipeline, which has been launched, under which the government will monetize $81 billion worth of brownfield assets over the period of 2022-25. Australia already has experience with similar model of disinvestment. Australia has a big opportunity in India in its e-mobility program, the cybersecurity collaborations, food technology and processing, grains management and logistics. The new education policy in India has opened up possibilities for further collaborations with Australian universities. The defense research organizations and private companies of India and Australia in space now have focused areas of cooperation. I would also like to refer to the Resilient Supply Chains Initiative, which was announced jointly by the trade ministers of Australia, India, and Japan. And it is encouraging that the CECA negotiations have resumed, and we've seen an announcement by you and Minister Goyal yesterday of an early harvest agreement by December 2021 to be followed by a comprehensive SECA by the end of 2022. It is also welcome news that the agreement will cover goods, services, investments, government procurement, logistics, standards, and rules of origin. Investments, Minister, are bound to play a very big role in the growth of bilateral trade between the two countries. The growth trajectory of India will create new opportunities for Australian companies in areas like water management and environmental services. India's need for critical minerals and technology for its clean energy goals, and Australia's potential as a long-term reliable supplier of commodities, rare earths and minerals is very clear. The Australian 2.3 trillion pension fund sector could be a regular source of investment in the Indian infrastructure and disinvestment story. It is hoped that both sides could also look at strengthening the IPR regime besides the double taxation issues between the two countries. For both countries, it would be very important that non-tariff barriers, differences in standards, or recognition of qualifications do not offset the higher access achieved through the trade agreements. These discussions will also help us in reaching trilateral convergence on the Resilient Supply Chains Initiative, where Japan is a common partner. It is also important that businesses on both sides remain supportive, and today's event, therefore, and your presence here assumes special significance. We are certain, Minister Tehan, that your visit will encourage entrepreneurs and investors in both countries to venture into mutually beneficial relationships and leverage their complementarities to achieve global success. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ambassador Wadwa, and I'd encourage all of you to take a look at the Australia Economic Strategy and also the India Economic Strategy, which is going through an update at the moment, but they're two fundamental documents to the economic relationship between our two countries. I'd now like to welcome the Honourable Dan Tehan MP, Australian Minister for Trade and Tourism and Investment, to give today's keynote address. Just a couple of words I'll say before he takes the stage, and that is just that he really has wasted no time in strengthening and driving the Australian-Indian economic relationship. We're very pleased to have him with us in India this week. He's hit the ground running, and I'm sure he'll be able to speak more about that today in our panel discussion, but he's really been a driving force already in our bilateral relationship. So it gives me great pleasure in introducing our Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, the Honourable Dan Tehan.
Thanks, Catherine. And can I say what a pleasure it is to be back in India, and can I thank you and for the job that Austrade does here in India for promoting in particular the business-to-business relationships that we already have and that we want to see expand. Can I acknowledge the High Commissioner who also has hit the ground running since he's been here and is doing an outstanding job, even though he's had to deal with COVID-19. And can I just pay my respects to everyone here who's suffered at the hands of COVID-19, and also those in Australia who likewise have suffered at the hands of COVID-19. But I know we're all determined to defeat this virus and get life back to normal, and we're seeing the signs of that occurring already, both here in India and Australia. And I'll have a little bit more to say on that in the coming moments. Ambassador, and I thank you for your work that you do for the Australia-India economic relationship. I was watching a little video this morning on YouTube of you talking about the relationship. And I must say that your knowledge is quite extraordinary when it comes to the partnership that we have and we're trying to develop into the future. So thank you. And I can see why the High Commissioner refers to you as the Big A, because it is very, very much well deserved. Can I say to be back in India is just wonderful. The first time I came here was as a 16-year-old boy. I travelled to India with my family. I was one of 6 children, and my parents decided that it would be a great experience for us to come to India for 6 weeks and travel from the north to the south of the country. And the thing that always struck me was the warmth and the way that the Indian people welcomed you. Wherever we went, and we went to, I think, about 10 to 12 different locations in those 6 weeks, we were always felt that we were at home. And the thing that struck me in particular was, as a 16-year-old boy, doing the tourist thing was obviously something that you got a little bit tired of every now and again. But there would always be games of cricket going on the streets, in the parks. And if you ventured over and indicated that you were from Australia and you could play a little bit of cricket, you would be welcomed in and you could join the games. And it was just delightful to play so much cricket with so many people who you didn't know in just such a warm environment. And it always struck with me, and I've been incredibly fond of India ever since. And I said to Minister Goyal yesterday, there is nothing that would give me greater pleasure than for me and him to be able to sit down and agree a free trade agreement between Australia and India that would really enhance our economic partnership and build on the extraordinary work which is already being done to enhance our comprehensive strategic partnership. Just look at what's happened recently. We've had our 2 leaders meet in New York to have a significant bilateral, and then to partake in the Quad leaders meeting, demonstrating the strategic importance which is now being placed on the relationship. We've had the Foreign Minister and the Defence Minister come here for a 2+2, once again highlighting how important the strategic relationship is. And a couple of months ago, we had our former Prime Minister come here to really help kickstart the economic relationship. I asked the Honourable Tony Abbott to come to India to see what we could do to really re-energise our economic relationship. And after meeting with Prime Minister Modi, we were able to set the path to what myself and Minister Goyal were able to achieve yesterday. And can I thank Minister Goyal, who is in the UAE today, and he'll be opening the India Pavilion at the UAE exhibition, where I'll be heading tomorrow to do the same with the Australian Pavilion, for the warmth of the welcome he showed me yesterday and for what we were able to achieve. It's very rare that 2 trade ministers would sit down alone for 3 hours to be able to work through what the economic partnership for the future should look like, and do so over a lovely Indian meal and work through what we needed to achieve. But that is what we're able to do. As the High Commissioner remarked, it made a few of the officials a little uneasy that 2 ministers would be left alone for that period of time. But we systematically worked through what we needed to do to really enhance our economic partnership. And I think that we have set a significant framework that we now have to make sure that we can deliver. And it will be done in 2 parts. There will be an interim agreement which will be delivered by this Christmas, and then there will be a final free trade agreement which will be delivered by the Christmas after, by December 2022. And the interim agreement will be a substantial one. As the Ambassador mentioned, we'll be looking to exchange offers in a raft of areas, And we'll also be looking to detail specific areas that we want to make real and meaningful progress on. So goods, services and investment, the three key pillars, all will be dealt with in the interim agreement. Substantial market access offers in these areas. But there will be other things that we'll be seeking to explore. So there'll be rules of origin that we will be looking at, phytosanitary issues, and we've agreed that we will set up a working party to deal with those phytosanitary issues. That's how we make sure that those exports can flow very freely, especially in the agricultural space, that can really build on what we need to do. With regards to standards, we also will have a chapter on standards, because we want to make sure that standards won't get in the way of the economic partnership, because that's incredibly important. And then when it comes to the mutual recognition of qualifications, this is another thing which is holding us back. We also discussed that area. And then there are the new areas. I joked when we had our CEO roundtables meeting last week with our business champions that we previously, and it's always been acknowledged, the relationship as one of cricket, curry and the Commonwealth. But what we're doing now is moving on from those three C's. Critical minerals, clean energy and the seeker itself will enable us to do that. Look at the potential we have when it comes to critical minerals and rare earths. They're the key ingredients which will drive our clean energy future, which will drive decarbonisation of our economies over time in a way which enables our economies continue to grow. And can I just note the success story here in India of its economy throughout COVID-19. I think making it unique amongst countries of the world, especially when it comes to investment. What you've been able to achieve in continuing to see your investment flows here in India throughout COVID-19 sets you apart from the rest of the world. Globally, FDI has declined by 50%, yet here in India, we've seen that investment continue to grow. Incredibly important. And both our economies, both here in India and Australia, I think have withstood COVID-19 like there has been no tomorrow, which means that we can kickstart out of COVID-19, I think, in a way that very few other countries will be able to do globally. And it will be in those areas, in critical minerals, rare earths, in the clean technology area. It's why there will be a resources and energy chapter in what we agreed yesterday between myself and Minister Goyal, because we understand that that's going to be a key driver into the future. So the relationship, the economic relationship, is one that is full of potential. But we all have work to do, and in particular our business community has work to do to make sure that that potential grows and flourishes. And one of the things that it's going to help is that Australia is opening up again. And it is wonderful, wonderful news that we are. We've just announced today the pathway for our international border to reopen. And that will occur when we hit 80% national vaccination rate, and the states and territories hit that 80% vaccination rate, which we are on target to achieve in November. And the Prime Minister has announced a plan that will see us reopen. And incredibly important when it comes to Covishield, the Indigenous vaccine that's been produced here in India, that will be recognised as a vaccine. So that means that Indians will be able to travel to Australia. They'll have their vaccine certification and that will be recognised. So this is wonderful news, because we all know when it comes to exporting, when it comes to importing, when it comes to investing, those people-to-people links are so important. Being able to travel between Australia and India is so, so important. And that is about to happen again, which is wonderful. Wonderful for the business relationship, wonderful for the investment relationship, wonderful for our international students that we will be able to welcome back as well. And I know there are many Indian international students that are looking to get back to Australia as soon as possible. We want to welcome our Indian students back as well. As a former education minister, can I say nothing will give me greater joy than our Indian students coming back to Australia. But it won't be just that relationship when it comes to education that's going to be important. There are other things that we discussed yesterday. What we can do to get more investment from Australian universities into the higher education sector here in India. What we can do to get more partnerships in the R&D space is going to be incredibly important. What we can do in the vocational education space is going to be key also to enhancing the economic partnership. There is so much that we need to do, so much that we need to explore. And I think the meeting that we had yesterday has set up the framework for us to be able to do it. So can I say this to our officials, both the Indian officials in the Commerce Department and the officials in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. The ministers have set us a very, very ambitious targets. And what we need to now be able to do is make sure that we can do the work that will see us achieve that outcome by December this year, and then achieve that final outcome by December next year. And I'll finish on this note. We're updating our India economic strategy. I made the announcement that we would do that a couple of months ago. It will be updated in the next couple of months. And the reason I wanted it updated is because I am ambitious for the Australia-India economic partnership. I am ambitious for that partnership. And I know Minister Goyal is ambitious for our partnership. So let all of us work together to match that ambition so that we can ensure that our economic partnership truly reflects the incredibly close and important relationship that our two countries have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Wow. You can tell that the energy and the drive and the ambitions there. And as the Minister mentioned, 3 hours with his counterpart yesterday is an amazing example of the strength of the relationship. One thing I just wanted to mention before I hand over to our moderator today is the Minister's mention of partnerships. This forum is called Partnering for Prosperity. And that is what we have embedded behind the whole notion of AIBX. It's not just about Australia, it's not just about India, it's about how working together we can both be prosperous. So I just wanted to highlight that point. But we now move to the business leaders panel discussion. So I would like to invite Ruchi Bhatia, who is the anchor from the Economic Times, who's going to moderate our discussion today. She's also going to be introducing our panelists for today and inviting them up to the stage. So I will now hand over to Ruchi Bhatia. And we also have 2 of our panelists joining online, but I think I'll leave it at that. Is that correct, Ruchi? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all of you taking your time out and being a part of this event that has been put together by the Australia-India Business Exchange. I welcome you all to this special discussion here to understand the economic relationship between Australia and India, and also to reflect on what trade opportunities both the countries can have or can work upon. India-Australia Exchange came into being after the strategic meet between Prime Ministers of the 2 countries, a flagship program, an initiative that works to advance commercial partnerships and build a two-way market literacy between Australia and India. And with Minister Tehan coming to India, it reflects on the commitment and focus on enhancement of future relationships. And that's exactly what we will be discussing today as a part of this panel discussion as to how both the countries and businesses in both the countries can come together and partner for prosperity. And of course, joining us here for this panel discussion with me today, this morning is the Honorable Minister Dan Tehan MP, Australian Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Mr. N.G. Subramaniam, the COO and Executive Director, TCS, Mr. Arun Maheshwari, the Joint Managing Director and CEO of JSW Infrastructure, Ms. Tanya Archibald, the CFO of Blue Scope Steel Limited, and also Mr. Alistair Symington, the CEO and Managing Director of Blackmore's Group. Thank you very much for all of you taking your time out and, of course, being with us today. Let me first ask you, the Minister, you've had a very fruitful visit here in India. You've been meeting with your Indian counterpart here, the Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal as well. And this really is building on the high tempo government-to-government engagement that we've seen in the last couple of months. You did talk about that we will see an FTA being done very soon. Talk to us about how this is going to be the next step in terms of businesses and investments from both Indian and the Australian side, and how we can move towards and take a next step towards prosperity for both the countries.
Well, on the economic side, obviously a free trade agreement sets an important framework as to how our business communities relate with each other. And to put it in its most simplest terms, what it does is provide certainty to the economic relationship. It puts the guardrails in place so that businesses know that they can put the time and the effort into the relationships, they can put the time and the effort into the investments that they place, and know that there is certainty in the framework that's in place between the two countries when they do that. So one of the things that we discussed, for instance, yesterday was the double taxation agreement between both nations. And one of the things that it's doing is holding back how we're seeing the movement of people in the IT space. And we want to work through that to unlock that potential. And so myself and Minister Goyal think that we've found a way through this that will be able to accommodate both countries. So it's then will enable that future investment to occur in this area. And what we'll see is the relationship grow as a result of it. So that's just one example. On the phytosanitary side, if we can make sure that we can deal with some of the disease issues that often prevent fruit and vegetables exchanging between both countries, that then means that we'll see greater provision of fruit and vegetables from Australia to India, India to Australia in a way that's safe, but it means that businesses can invest. It means partnerships can develop between the agricultural exporting companies in both countries, and you'll see greater investment go into areas from both countries. One of the things we do have is a very high productive agricultural sector. Now, we think that our technology can help India in that area develop and grow. And that's something which would give us great pride to be able to work in partnership with India to help it encourage and grow its agricultural sector and its potential. So all these areas are incredibly important, but what an FTA would do more than anything else is provide that certainty, that business certainty that businesses need to invest and grow.
Absolutely. In fact, this is going to be, as I said, the next step towards prosperity between businesses and trade and investment between both the countries. Mr. N.G. Subramaniam, if I can come to you, TCS in fact employs about 4,000 people across 6 offices, and Australia is also in TCS's top priority markets globally. Talk to us about how your experience has been working in Australia in the last 3 decades. You've been present there for almost 30 years.
Good morning and good afternoon. At the outset, let me thank Mr. Tehan and congratulate the aspect of opening of borders. It's a huge, huge milestone. Thank you very much. As Tata Consultancy Services, we have been present in Australia for over 3 decades now. The whole thing started when some of our global customers wanted us to support them in Australia. Very quickly then we felt that the opportunity and the talent availability, the way that the solutions that one could co-create in Australia, which will have global applicability, is something that we wanted to nurture. So we started to work with a lot of the national champions, the financial institutions in Australia, retail stores in Australia, and made ourselves relevant. Then in the early 2000s, we made 2 acquisitions in Australia. One of them is a banking software company called Financial Network Services, which was based in Sydney. Phenomenal software, which is now installed in over 200 institutions across the globe, some of the largest of the large banks across the globe, whether it's in India, China, Middle East, and United States. They're all using that software. Then, we started to look at the opportunity to co-create solutions, tied up with a number of universities in Australia and New Zealand to work on some of the frontier areas of technology to solve some of the tough business problems. So overall, it has been a phenomenal experience, phenomenal growth. We have close to about 20,000 people working for Australia and Australian related projects, but over 4,000 people present in Australia. And we have very ambitious plans of growth in Australia.
I will be talking about those ambitious plans that you have in just a while from now. But Mr. Maheshwari, if I can come to you, talk to us about where do you see opportunities in partnership on the trade and investment front between the 2 countries?
Thank you, Ruchi. First of all, thank you, Minister Dan. Whenever we talk about Australia, a natural smile comes to your face. It's not cosmetic. It is very natural. It comes from the heart. Because whenever you go to Australia, the warmth, what we see, we don't have only a cricketing tie-up. We do have a lot of industrial tie-up. If we see Indian steel company, I'm largely from a steel background. So steel companies are largely dependent on Australian minerals. Australia has one of the richest coal blocks on the coking coal side. The relationship between JSW and Australia has been almost about 3 decades now. As what TCS had, similarly, we have those 3 decades. And the total business volume, what JSW does is about close to $3 to $4 billion annually, which is likely to go to $6 billion in another couple of years, which is significant from a steel perspective. I think India and Australia has lot many things which can be done on forward integration or a backward integration, whichever we look at it. Australia has all the ingredients to produce steel or other ferroalloys and other materials. India has that capability in terms of manpower, in terms of low cost of product conversion. Probably it can be, the manufacturing setup can be done in India, and it can be a backward integration in terms of supplies of raw material, key raw material from Australia. The other key area could be, Ruchi, if I look at the infrastructure sector in Australia, especially the railway and the mining and the port sector, it's amazing. You go across the globe, probably you will find Australia is right up there. It is one of the best infrastructure companies we can find in Australia. The railway networks are superb, very less human interaction. It's all technology driven. The mining is amazing technologies. You can't even think about it, and you see in practice over there. So those kind of technologies, probably India can benefit out of those technologies. Some kind of import of those technologies and joint ventures can be done. This is an area of opportunity I see. India has been doing mining for ages, but then they have been doing it in very, very small segments. It brings a lot of inefficiencies. Probably that can be improved upon. Right. That is one good area, probably. So I look forward to to having a forward or a backward integration from the steel or the other material production.
Right. And I will be taking, all those issues up as well later in the discussion. I also want to ask you, you did tell me earlier when we were chatting that you used to travel very frequently to Australia.
Yeah,
so
Australia
opening up the borders is coming as good news to you.
Thank you, Dan. And it's indeed a very, very good news that, Australia is opening the borders. And if Australia is opening the borders, then definitely the rest of the world will open it. I look forward to that. It's superb news, first of all. Thank you for that. And I think a lot of Indians are looking forward to it, and a lot of Australians are looking forward to it. So not only the cricket teams, even all of us can travel, even the spectators can travel over there.
All right. Let me also take, this question up with Tanya as well. Tanya, thank you very much. You're joining us virtually. I want to first begin by asking you on your partnership with the Tata Group here. This is, of course, when you're entering into the Indian markets, it's a very tough landscape to really figure out. So I want to first begin by asking you, how did you decide on the Tata Group in terms of your JV, and what kind of opportunities do you see between the two countries that we can explore in the future?
Sorry.
Okay, we're just going to take a moment while we fix Tanya's line. If I can take it up with Alistair as well. Alistair, we're speaking, you're very, in fact, in the healthcare space, and we're speaking at a time when we're just coming out of COVID-19. Talk to us about the opportunities that you see in the healthcare space, and how have you navigated through the Indian market? Oh, it seems that we're fixing the mics there. But Dan, if I can come to you, while we're talking, we're fulfill, these global ambitions that both these two countries have as well?
Well, I think the key to it is the partnership. That's the thing that will drive the success. And partnership comes from long-term relationships. And I think the great thing about Australia and India is that those long-term relationships are there. We've just heard two examples of long-term relationships and how they're beginning to pay dividends. And I think, the foundations are there. They really are there. And I think that is what holds out for the future. That's what really shows how bright the relationship is going to become, because the trust is there, the relationships are there, and there are solid foundations for that to be built on. And I think what we're seeing is geostrategic shifts are just enhancing those partnerships. I think there is a trust there that is so important as well, and we see that through our leaders. You see it through our ministerial engagement. You see it through the business engagement. There are so many things that the relationship has going for it, and I think that is, we've just got to remember, there is so much that we are going to be building upon, and as long as we remember that those solid foundations are there, I really think we're going to see it exponentially begin to grow. I actually think it's our time. It really is our time.
Yes.
And I have to make sure that I keep the rhetoric at a not too high pitched level, because we do have just this remarkable chance to really drive what at the moment, I think we've got to be serious about this, a $26 billion two-way trading investment relationship, which is still in its infancy.
So basically,
what we can achieve.
So basically, the time is ripe to move beyond cricket, curry, and Commonwealth, as you said.
Absolutely. And the more we do that, the more that 26 billion will be 52 billion, it'll be 100 billion, and it'll be start to be where we want it to be. The foundations are there, the trust is there, the partnership, the long-term investments there, but we've got to enable it to grow, and both governments have to do that, because there are things that the government-to-government relationship hasn't been able to achieve, which has really freed up our business community's opportunity to be able to grow, and that's what we need to be able to do.
I think we've been able to fix the audio with Tanya as well. Tanya, if you can hear me. I was asking you about, how do you navigate through the Indian market? And when you were looking for a JV partner here in India, what were some of the key things that worked for you when it comes to the Tata Group?
So firstly, when it comes to the foundational level, and firstly, I should say thank you very much for having me here. I think firstly, when it comes to the foundational level, it was around the business model that we were looking to employ, and we're not an exporter. We don't have too many issues on the trade side. It's more about where in India for India, and the business model for us was about where we're going to source our feed materials, and most critically the channel to market. So we were looking for a partner who could fill both of those two roles, and we then bring the IP, the metal coating and painting technologies, the IP around the branding, etc. But that's at a very transactional level. I think what you're fundamentally looking for in a partner is someone that you can fundamentally trust and you have respect for. And that was, we have that in spades with Tata. I think we have an aligned set of values, and it's often, I've often pondered on the fact that we might be culturally very different, but we certainly have a very much aligned value set. I think we're both organisations that fundamentally want to do the right thing. And I think when you've got that aligned value set, and I think when you've got a shared objective of growing in the market, you can overcome any problem. And you need to do that in India because there's no 2 days the same. There's always a different challenge that presents itself. And it changes so rapidly that you need to be very, very agile. Long-term planning can be really difficult. And I think if you're able to have a pretty agile stance and you've got a partner who you trust and respect, you can solve any problem. That is just critically important. So I can't speak highly enough of our partner. They certainly helped us in the early years. I mean, it's no secret it took us a long time to build the business. We originally signed our partnership agreement back in 2005. It took us until 2012 to commission the major plant, and it was another 4 years before we reached profitability. So it really was 10 years of patience and perseverance. And Tata certainly helped us through that. They helped us through the early days, working through issues with the land, working through issues with tax and the legal system. And there's still a lot of issues there in those systems, but they help us and they guide us along the way. And I think what we have now is an extremely valuable business. And I think our partner has been critical in that. I think without a good partner such as Tata, for us, it would have been very, very difficult. When I think about when we first came to India, we already had existing investments across a large part of the Asian region, so Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand. And India was the one place that we didn't have a major investment. And we look at the market, and it's an incredible market. It's very large. It's now the second largest steel market in the world outside of China. And it's growing very fast, low levels of steel consumption per capita, so there's a lot of upside here. But I think without a partner, I don't think we would have come into India. It's a difficult place to work your way through. Lots of opportunity, but you do need a partner, the right partner to help you work your way through that and be successful.
I can come to you too as well, and just want to understand from you, where do you see things headed between the two countries in terms of trade and investment, the kind of opportunities you see? You've been present in the healthcare sector, and healthcare, of course, has gained a lot of prominence, especially in the aftermath of COVID-19, the pandemic.
Yes, no, firstly, yes, thanks for the invitation today. It's a real pleasure to be here. We've just only recently entered into India, so we're actually only in the first few weeks actually of entering into the market. So you know, the opportunity for us though has presented itself for quite a number of years now, and COVID you know, has taught us all that you know, we need to obviously make sure that as we consider some of these markets that we're coming in and we're doing the right thing at the right time. And a company like ours, Blackmores, has been around for 90 years, and we've been in Asia for more than 40 years. But we're now very pleased to be a part of the choice that Indian consumers would have in terms of their health outcomes. And two things COVID has done for our business of healthcare in general. One, it's increased the awareness of the benefits of health generally. And in the space that we play, which is around natural health solutions, consumers are looking for more and more alternatives in their, not only their own repertoire, but that of their families. So for us to be able to come to India at this time, when the world is still so challenged by a global health crisis, and be able to provide solutions for consumers in a market like India is a real privilege. And we have to make sure that we do the right thing as we come into this market. So, you know, the theme for today is partnering for prosperity, and for us, a little bit different, I think, to many that are on the panel. You know, we have a couple of different partners that we've been looking at and started forming part of those strengthening those partnerships with. One is Primark, which is a distributor that's helping us to access Amazon. And so for us, the opportunity to reach more and more consumers in India is through the real acceleration. This is the second part of COVID, is bringing forward the acceleration acceptance for digital solutions in order to access products and information. And that is where a company like ours with 90 years of product knowledge, but also health information can play a big role in a market like India.
Mr. Subramaniam, if I can come to you, you know, you were talking to us about how TCS has been involved in co-creating solutions for specific industries, specific areas in Australia. Talk to us about, you know, some of the work that has been done by TCS, and where do you see the future roadmap in terms of where things are headed, in terms of especially how technology can really help in some of the areas that you know, you guys are kind of working on?
I think the couple of examples I'll start with. First is that after acquiring the banking product from Financial Network Services, we had substantially invested to modernize it, make it future-proof, make it current in terms of its applicability and the breadth and width of financial products that it can satisfy. The icing was when we could actually go and install it with the Reserve Bank of Australia, right? So again, you know, the central bank's processes, knowledge, all that became very handy, and it substantially enhanced the product capability for applicability to central banks, the way that they do business. That has a wider applicability for rest of the banks, rest of the central banks, especially in the Commonwealth countries, because we all share a common set of legal framework, right, if I can put it, right? The second one more recently is, again, you know, we worked with the Australia Energy Market Operator, where the energy settlement time, the challenge that they had was when the investment takes place and the trading takes place, it used to take about 30 minutes for settlement. With the result that, look, for the consumer, about 30% of the price is what they acquire in the wholesale market. Right? So the longer the time period that they have, then the price for the consumer keeps going up, right? And people make errors in pricing because they're unsure about what exactly the price is. So we worked with them, and then with a local university to come up with an algorithm by which we could reduce the time from 30 minutes to 5 minutes, which is almost fairly instantaneous, right? And the benefit that got delivered to the public at large and the industries at large was huge, right? Then, as a company, we have set ourselves some audacious goals in terms of sustainability, right? And again, the thinking, the acceptance of, becoming carbon neutral and net zero is a widely accepted topic, especially among the younger generation in Australia, right? So I'm pleased to say that, look, we have adopted some of the technologies and the processes by which our operations in Australia will be carbon neutral by March 2022, right? These are some of the, phenomenal benefits I see. And I used to travel to Sydney and the rest of Australia, almost, once a quarter at least, spend about a week there. My day used to start by having a run at the botanical gardens, right? So I used to inhale oxygen like anything for the rest of the 4 months, right? And then you take that walk around the harbor and then meet with the financial people, the industry, then you get a feel for where the world is going. You get the feel for what are the trends, which is going to be important. Where is it that you need to invest in, right? So, again, the opening of the borders is a phenomenal thing. I can't wait for the next to get there quickly. Yeah.
I'll go for a run with you around the botanical gardens.
Maybe Mr. Maheshwari can also join in for the run. Mr. Maheshwari, you did speak about the plethora of opportunities that are there, especially for Indian companies that are looking at Australia in terms of the infrastructure sector. Talk to us about, how have you seen the landscape change, and in terms of the path that some of the Indian companies can perhaps look at as they're looking at Australia as the next investment destination?
Yeah, very good, Ruchi. Thanks for asking that question, because I see a hell lot of opportunities coming out of between these two countries. I have been into this sector for almost now 2.5 decades or so, and I see the landscape changing, wherein India was treated as like one of the very, very low producing country, not very efficiently producing steel or other materials, and suddenly, it is coming onto the scale. We are the second largest steel producing country in the world now, just below, not just below China, far below China, but then just ahead of many other countries. And I think we have a natural partnership coming along with Australia on that aspect. We have grown business together in the last 2 decades. And now I see a value addition being created at both the locations. Aussie companies exactly know what India needs, and India know exactly what they can get out of Australia, so that they can define their technologies accordingly. So this kind of unsaid kind of tie-ups are being created. There are a couple of Indian companies who have invested in the minerals in Australia, not major ones, but then yes, because we are at a very nascent stage, if still, we have a target of producing 300 million tons of steel in India, which we are producing only 130 million tons as of now. Huge opportunity. I see amazing opportunity in this one particular sector. The other sector could be railway networks. India has a vast railway network, but the technologically point of view, the efficiency point of view, we are far, far behind as compared to Australia. Probably Aussie, I request from this forum, all the Aussie rail company and infrastructure companies to explore India. I think a great deal of expertise can be brought to India. And I'm looking forward to that as a company and as a country as well. The third could be the port sector. Australia has one of the finest ports, safe practices, great efficiencies, very, very good throughput times. Probably India can have some kind of experience coming. Of course, India has very, very good ports, but then probably there's always a scope of learning or upgrading the things. The fourth, and probably the fourth could be the energy efficiency side. We have looked forward to the energy space. One of our group companies, JSW Energy, has got a MOU done with one of the Aussie companies on the green hydrogen. So that could be a very, very upcoming technology. And I look forward that, both the countries and both the companies deliver a great result in the coming years. So these are the 4 key areas I look forward. There are plethora of other areas, but I can touch upon only my area of expertise. But I'm sure education or travel or tourism or healthcare could be another area.
In fact, some of the sectors that you mentioned, education, travel, tourism, we have seen natural partnerships between India and Australia when it comes to these sectors. But some of the new age sectors, for example, e-commerce, for example, on the technology front, where do you see, if I can ask the minister that, where do you see the partnerships in some of the new age sectors coming in?
So in e-commerce, this was something that we discussed yesterday as well. And the Minister Goyal is putting through new laws in the e-commerce area. And what we agreed is once those new laws are through the Indian Parliament, then we will look to do an e-commerce component to our free trade agreement. So it won't be part of the early harvest, the interim agreement, but it's something we definitely want to have in place by the final agreement, because this is the new marketplace. Yes. It's the new marketplace. And what it means, and in particular for India, it means that all those small and medium-sized businesses all of a sudden have an opportunity not just to trade within their local village, within their local province, within the local state, but all of a sudden they can look to Australia and say, well, I have an opportunity also to sell into this market as well. So it exponentially, once again, can grow and enhance the relationship. And I'm really looking forward to us being able to work on that e-commerce chapter of the free trade agreement. We discussed it yesterday. I understand that India needs to get its own domestic laws in place, but once they're in place, we really do need to make sure that we can grow this area, because it opens opportunities for businesses, especially smaller businesses right throughout India and in Australia, to a marketplace which they would never have known 20 or 30 years ago. So this is the new frontier, and we have to make sure we're part of it.
In fact, if I can take that point across to Alistair as well. Alistair, your entry into the Indian market has also been through the e-commerce, space. Talk to us about, how do you kind of navigate through the Indian, the Indian market? It's a very diverse market. There's, of course, a big, demographic dividend that's working for India, but it's also a very tough market for anybody coming in, from another country to kind of navigate through as well. So talk to us about some of the challenges and how you overcame these challenges.
Yes. No, I think just building on the Minister's comments there around access for consumers in India and the benefit that e-commerce plays to provide access to more and more consumers. And in a country like India, as we all know, far-reaching, very diverse, different socioeconomic demographics across the country as well. But e-commerce, the interesting thing for us as we start partnering with Amazon in India there's a few things. One is that we notice that 60% of the population of India is under the age of 35. And most of them have grown up with a mobile phone in their hand, and most of them are digital natives, so they understand the digital environment more maybe than they would understand many of us, the sort of traditional, what we would call brick and mortar, so your corner store and the traditional stores in India, the kirana stores, the mom and pop stores, that's where we all would normally purchase our goods. Well, these days, those younger consumers they're searching online, and when they go online, they're looking for information, and they're actually getting their recommendations, and they're being influenced by the ratings and reviews that they see on the retail sites. And so for a company like ours, it actually provides us with an opportunity very quickly to not only reach more consumers through the platforms, whether it's Amazon, Flipkart, and there's other pure play platforms that are starting up in India. We know that India is a very entrepreneurial market, so And we know that there's more and more of these players will emerge. So for us, it's not only the big players, but it's also those niche players in health where we can partner to provide alternatives for consumers in terms of their choices on health products. The other area is around the fact that Amazon in particular, they can ship to 50% of all postcodes in India within 3 days. And they're saying that they can actually ship to 100% of postcodes in India in 5 days. Now, in the past, for us to be able to access India and the market, you would go through a network of distributors, you would go through a network of sub-distributors, you'd then find a lot of individual stores, and the ability for you to actually drive scale and awareness in that type of environment was very, very challenging. So we've made the choice to actually start with e-commerce first, to lay the foundation around awareness and brand building off these e-retail platforms. Then we will partner with more traditional retailers, those who will be able to provide the right service and environment for premium health products. Because the one thing that we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves on is the fact that we offer premium healthcare products. And it's not going to be for every consumer in India, mainly because of the affordability. So how do we provide products in the right pack formats, at the right price point, that will allow more and more consumers in India to access high quality, safe, international products like that.
Alistair, having said that, before I move to Tanya, because we're talking about the healthcare space, I want to understand from you in terms of where do you see the partnership between the two countries evolving in terms of some of the technological innovations and also product development, because that's also one key focus area for especially a company like yours.
Yeah, look, it's a great question. We, as I said, we've been in Asia for more than 40 years. So there's sort of 3 areas as we enter into a new market that we look to draw closer ties. One is with the local regulator. Every market has its own regulatory standards. We have the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia, so it's been well established for many, many years. India's got a great regulator as well. Over time, sharing information, understanding where we see commonalities around things like recommended daily intake of certain higher grade nutrients as a substitute for diet. So working with the regulator in that area. The second area is with universities. So it's through partnering with universities. And to give you an example, in China, we partner with Tsinghua University based out of Beijing. And we're looking at certain conditions and treatment of those conditions. So for the China example, is around understanding the pressure that the women face in China around work and family, and thinking about the health solutions we can provide for women in China. We're looking at opportunities to do similar things with universities here in India as well. And that we then think about some of the products that we manufacture. Preconception and pregnancy is a big area as well. So that women's health is something that we're considering. And then I think the third area is just around consumer education in general. Now, I need to be fairly humble here because in India, Ayurvedic medicine has been around for a lot longer than Australia has. So, we tend to use ingredients that we borrow from Ayurvedic medicine. So ashwagandha is a very well-known herb that we know treats many different conditions in India. So, sharing of information, either from traditional medicine that we see in India with Western, more Western or advanced manufacturing processes that we've been used to in Australia. There's a common thread there that we can find between the two countries, and I think it benefits both countries in terms of raising health standards.
Tanya, if I can come to you, Mr. Maheshwari here spoke about the great deal of work that the two countries can do on the infrastructure space. Talk to us about how your experience has been working in this space, in the steel space here in India, and where do you see the synergies lie between the two countries, in the years to come as well?
Yeah, so we're not so much direct on infrastructure. So we're much more focused on metal coated and painted products that go into building and construction applications. So it tends to be more the infrastructure on the infrastructure, if you get what I mean. Having said that, there is an awful lot of opportunity for infrastructure development, obviously, within India. So for us, it's really part of the broader building and construction market, which is immense in India that they're looking at. In terms of where the synergies lie, I think that's an interesting one. There's just so many opportunities there. If I could just pick on a couple of very specific ones, I'd like to see greater sharing of maybe IP from the Australian government into the Indian government and the bureaucracy. And this goes to some of the very basic things that can help investors when they're coming into India. Of course, I'm a little biased because I'm talking at it from the perspective of an Australian investor coming into India and working within country. I think there's probably a lot more that can be done in terms of, there's a lot of issues at the moment with challenges about how you deal with the tax system, the tax authorities. It's quite opaque. It's quite difficult to understand. It's quite a challenge. And I suspect that maybe there's some best practices that could be obtained from the Australian Tax Office in how you deal with taxpayers. I think in the legal system, it's very challenging. So when you do have an issue on tax or the like, it can take a very long period of time. So I do wonder about what's the opportunity to borrow from some of the learnings in Australia, possibly. And then just basic digitisation. I am absolutely stunned by the amount of capability that sits within India around digitisation and technology in general. We actually run our back office processes. A lot of our back office processes, a lot of them are actually run out of Bangalore. And when we first did that move quite a number of years ago, I must admit to being absolutely stunned by the capacity and capability of world-class executives sitting down and challenging us on what we were doing with our processes. I'd love to see more of that capability coming into the bureaucracy. And then how can that be used to help streamline processes for investors coming in so that you can get more efficient in the way that you're trying to undertake particular transactions and how you're getting security over your investments so that you've got a lot more assurity over the tax processes that you're dealing with, the legal processes that you're dealing with, and land is the other big one. Land is a particular challenge. So if there's something that could be done there around using technology and applying technology and e-commerce principles, I guess, into those particular areas. So maybe I'll pause there.
In fact, we're running out of time. I'm going to give the last word to the minister. These are, some of the challenges that the Australian businesses have also, had when they're coming into India. In your conversations with the Indian counterpart, have you taken up some of these issues, and where do you see the future roadmap in terms of how India is looking to deal with some of those concerns that the Australian businesses have here?
Absolutely. These are issues which have been raised with me, which I've raised with Minister Goyal, and he's trying to do everything he can to make business as seamless as possible, to make investment into India as seamless as possible, like we are in Australia. And one of the things which I think is a really important initiative that we're trying to go through at the moment is to have a single trade window. So we want to have a very simplified trading system, so by you go in through one portal, and that will enable you to deal with all the requirements that you have to be able to bring your goods into Australia. Now, we think if we can achieve this, that will be a great breakthrough, and we'd be more than happy to share that type of technology with India. India has the IT capabilities. What it's a matter of doing is making sure that you can put the systems in place to simplify. So to give you a sense, we have single trade windows in about 5 departments. So you can't have a single trade window if there's 5 different ones in 5 different departments. So we're trying to make every department come together.
And streamline it.
So we actually have an actual one window. Now, it's not easy because the bureaucracy tends to try to hang on to their window and thinks the others should all come and join theirs. So, but we're breaking through that, and that's the sort of thing I think where we can work together with India, because you know, we should be able to make paper a thing of the past when it comes to trading between our two nations. We have the technological know-how. E-commerce is taking place at a rapid rate, and we need to make sure from a government level our systems keep up with it. So we're doing the work here. I know it's been thought about here in India. We've just got to make sure we can do it as quickly as possible so the business community isn't left waiting for government to act.
Oh, absolutely. And on that positive note, I'm going to hand it over to Catherine. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ruchi, and thank you to our panelists today. I must say I'm looking forward to the time when we have everybody in the same room. And I don't think anything is better than that face-to-face contact, as we know after the hearing of the 3-hour meeting yesterday. But my role really is to say a very huge thank you to the panelists for giving their time today. They are all very, very senior, busy people. They're all people who have a very strong commitment to the Australia-India relationship. So once again, a very huge thank you to them and to the Minister for staying so long today. And I would like to say that this is just, as we know, the ongoing conversation. The AIBX program will continue, and we're hoping that the Minister will be so enthusiastic that we might get everyone here at some time into the future so we can all meet again. But again, thank you for the tremendous goodwill and momentum that exists between the Australia-India relationship, and for all our delegates and panelists who have been involved in this program. So that concludes our formal proceedings for this session. Thank you. I would now like to just let people know that we'd love you to join us for a networking session and refreshments in the Mumtaz room. There'll be people able to direct you there. And then we'll be returning for lunch in this room in about 45 minutes. They'll reset the room in accordance to COVID guidelines. Thank you.